Today, I'm going to show you how to create an important potion ingredient, bat wings. The things we'll need to create our bat wings is one glass canister with a cork, and I am using one that's about 4.5 inches tall by 4 inches wide. We will then need some rubber bats. I picked these up at my local Michael's craft store, but you could get them at a Halloween store. You can find them sometimes in the dollar store. I'll try to put a link in the description down below to one online. Then I picked up some of this creepy cloth, which is just basically some black mesh gauze material. And I picked that up at my local Dollar Tree, but you can get that at a lot of different places, or you can just use some tulle or sheer mesh, anything you can find. Then I picked up a charm. It's got a bat on there and a little bit of like a skull design. We're going to use this as a decoration for the top of our jar. I picked that up at Michael's as well. Then we're going to need some acrylic paint, and we are going to be using black, tan, and gray today. We will need a foam brush for painting, some scissors, an Exacto knife, a hot glue gun with just regular clear glue in it, some sanding paper, and finally our label printed on sticker paper, and the link for this is in the description down below. Let's get started. The first thing we're going to do is take our jar, and we are going to take our sanding paper and we are going to rough it up. This is going to be able to give it a little bit more of an aged look, and I want this jar to look like it's old. I don't want it to look like it's new. So we're going to go ahead and sand the whole thing and get a really great aged scratched effect. So I don't know how well you guys can see this, but we have a great scratched effect on our jar. And now I'm going to take a cloth and some black paint, and I'm going to rub over this so then that way some of the paint gets down into those scratches. Now that I have my black paint on here, I'm going to go ahead and let this completely dry, so then that way when we go to wipe off some of the excess, it actually leaves the black in our crevices and scratches that we created with the sandpaper. So while my glass is drying, I'm going to go ahead and paint my cork. So you could leave the cork plain, but I actually want to make it kind of blend in with the label a little bit more. So I've taken some of my gray and tan paint and I've mixed them together to get the color I want, and I am just going to kind of brush this on my cork. And I want to do this really thin, so that way it kind of still shows the texture of the cork, but changes the color, similar to what we did with our flue powder. Okay, so now that I have my cork painted, it's a little bit closer to some of the color families that are in our label, so then that way it'll just kind of mesh a little bit more. And if it's not perfect, it doesn't matter. We're going to cover this up with our black gauzy material anyway. I just wanted the base color to be a little bit closer to some of the family of the grays and tans that are in the background of my label. Now that my container has dried, I'm just going to go back through with a very, very, very lightly dampened cloth, and I'm just going to wipe off some of this. You could definitely leave it this way if you want to. I just don't want mine to be quite as dirty, but it's all up to you, whatever your preference is. So I am going to leave some of that on there, and obviously some will stay in our cracks and crevices and scratches we've made, but I just want to get off some of this. And once I wiped off all of the excess paint, you can see where we really sanded down on the jar, and all of the paint stayed in those scratches and worn areas. So I like this, just kind of gives it a little bit more of a rough, aged look. You could continue to do this, but I think this is good for what I want it to look like. Okay, so from here, I'm going to take all of my little rubber bats, and I am going to take my scissors and cut all of the wings off. And you'll notice on mine that the front and the back are not exactly the same, and this side says like made in China or whatever. So when I put them in my jar, I'm just going to be careful to make sure that that isn't sticking out. But all we're going to do is take our scissors and cut along the edge of the body, which leaves us with the wing. Now that all of my wings have been cut from my bats, we can go ahead and get ready to put them in our jar. So to put them in our jar, I'm going to be kind of meticulous around the outside edge, at least a little bit, to just make sure that whatever wings I put in there are facing the correct direction and don't have that Made in China logo on them. You could cut wings out of paper if you wanted. If you find some fabric wings, you could definitely do those instead of the rubber ones. I just went for what I could find, and what I thought kind of looks like it was about the right size. They were really affordable, and I think they'll look good in our jar. So once I get some of them around the outside edge, I'm going to go ahead and fill in a little bit. And then that way I can start to stack up a little higher as I go around. And as you can see, we then have our jar filled with our little bat wings, ready for potion making. The next thing we're going to do with our cork is take our Exacto knife and our charm, and we're actually going to find the center of the cork here, and we are going to make a slit, and then that way we can push our charm into the cork, and then we're just going to glue it into place. So I want to make sure I find the center. Which I think is about here. So I'm going to go ahead and make a little slit here. And I'm going to see if my charm will fit into it. I'm going to have to make it a little bigger. And now that we know where our charm is going to go, we're going to go ahead and put our cork on our jar. And now that our cork is in place, I'm going to go ahead and take some of my creepy cloth, and I just cut a rough square of it, and I'm going to place it over my jar top here. And we can trim this however we want, but I'm just going to kind of roughly place it over it, so maybe part of it won't need trimmed. And then I'm going to take some jute twine, which I failed to mention in the supplies. I'll make sure I put it in the description. And I'm just going to tie a knot around our gauze. And then I'm going to actually unfray the ends of my jute twine here, just because I think it gives it a little bit more of an aged, creepy vibe. And this is completely optional, but I'm then going to take a lighter, and I'm just going to hit the end of this. Please do this under adult supervision, and please make sure you don't light the entire thing on fire. And I'm just going to singe some of the ends. So now that I have singed some of the ends of my twine here and given them a little bit more of an aged look, I'm going to go ahead and start trimming some of my gauze. And don't worry, you won't get a perfectly straight edge because you can just kind of fray it out a little bit more if you need to. So I'm just going to go through here. And trim some of this up a little shorter. Okay, so now that I have everything tied and trimmed, I'm then going to go back to the little hole we made up here to put our charm, and I'm just going to make sure that it inserts the way I want it to. Yep, and then I'm going to go ahead and put a little bit of my hot glue in here. And then just make sure everything is standing up straight. Now that we have our little topper on, I can go ahead and add my label. So just like we've done with other videos, I have taken my label printed on sticker paper, and I've gone around the outside edge with a matching marker, and all we're going to do is peel the backing paper off. And we're going to adhere it to our bottle. And once we get our label on, there you have it, our Bat Wings potion ingredient. This will be a great addition to our potion prop collection we've been making along the way. So if you guys like this video, give me the thumbs up. If you haven't subscribed, please do so. And we will catch you guys later. Thanks so much.